Welcome to the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast, the show committed to helping you dismantle the destructive mindset programs keeping you stuck in the proverbial bunker of poor performance so you can get out of your own way and play to your potential. My name is Paul Salter. I'm a high-performance hypnotherapist and mindset coach with 16 years of experience helping thousands of individuals like you get unstuck. This podcast features a collection of solo episodes, conversations with scratch and plus handicap golfers, and masterclasses with top experts in the performance psychology space. The one goal? To help you make playing to your potential a habit. Hey, fellow golfer. Welcome back to another episode of the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast. My name is Paul Salter, the golf hypnotherapist, and I am thrilled and incredibly grateful you have tuned in to yet another episode. It's been such an amazing journey the past 8-9 months or so now, and the beautiful part about this journey is we are just getting started. And today, we have an incredibly important topic to discuss: constipation. Specifically, emotional constipation. Now, I often joke, though I'm incredibly serious, that for the first 30 years of my life, I was emotionally constipated. And when I use this term emotional constipation, yes, there's a slight amount of humor in it. But the truth is, if you are feeling stuck in your consistent attempt to achieve a goal, level up, upgrade, or become the next best version of yourself, chances are you are emotionally constipated, meaning you are struggling to identify, own, and express your emotions. And in the remainder of today's episode, my priority, first and foremost, is to empower you with a much greater awareness and understanding of the role emotions play in your life. Yes, to help you play and perform to your potential on the course, but equally, if not more important, your ability to achieve your potential off the course. Because as we've discussed at length in previous episodes, you can be the best compartmentalizer in the world. But if you are carrying such heavy emotional baggage in your personal or professional life, it will wear on you. It will drain you. It will inevitably break you down. All of that will be reflected in your golf game. It's not if, it's a matter of when. So as we move through this conversation and begin expanding your awareness and understanding the role emotion plays in your life and in your golf game, I encourage you to keep an open mind. You know, I often joke, and I've shared this on multiple podcasts I've been a guest on, I call myself a high-performance hypnotherapist and mindset coach. That is what I do. It's who I am. Yet technically, and my clients know this so incredibly well, a lot of what I do is involved in the work of emotion and energetics. Yet, if I were to call myself an emotional release coach or something similar, I would send my entire ideal audience and client demographic running the other direction. You know, I primarily, probably 75-80% work with men as my coaching clients, and generalizing, most men are emotionally constipated, afraid of their emotions. And it's my hope that after listening to today's episode, you begin to drop that guard, drop that front, one of many protective mechanisms, and learn to begin working with your emotions. Because after all, you are an emotional being. Now, to make this conversation a bit easier to digest, it's probably helpful if I don't use the word emotions enough, or as much, excuse me. So I think it's incredibly important, and this is one of my favorite talking and teaching points, to recognize that the Latin derivative of the word emotion is emotere, and I likely mispronounced that. But emotere literally means energy in motion. Emotion is simply energy moving throughout your body. Emotion is energy in motion. And you've experienced this so many times. You might even be experiencing this in the first 5-6 minutes of this episode. Think about, for example, the last time you felt anxious. There's a physical experience presence too. And everybody experiences emotions differently in the physical manifestation within their body. For you, that anxiety might be a butterfly or nauseous-like sensation in your stomach. For me, anxiety is experienced as tightness or tension in my chest. These physical feelings are representations, manifestations of the energy in motion that's associated with said emotion. Energy is constantly in flux. Keep that in mind. It's dynamic. It's chronically impermanent. The one constant in your life is change. It is energy which enables, empowers, facilitates change. And I have a strong imagination that one of the primary reasons you are listening to this podcast is because you want to make a change in your life. The shift, which is just a synonym for change in this context, you aspire to make in your thoughts and your beliefs and your behaviors. That change requires energy. Energy is the currency of transformation, upgrading, and leveling up. And if you want to master your life, master your golf game, you need to master your energy. Life is a game of energy. And if we get real meta here and begin to play the game within the game, when we slow down and collectively have the experience like we feel as if we're in the matrix, everything is moving incredibly fast around us. There's so much energy and chaos, yet it feels like everything is happening in slow motion. That's an experience in which you have reclaimed control, reclaimed power of your emotional, energetic state. And when you're in that position, when you feel empowered and in control, your opportunities for growth are abundant, are limitless. And I want to help you reclaim that power, that control, that sense of energy. So we're going to talk a lot about energetics today. Of course, you'll learn here very shortly to be used synonymously with the word emotion. So one of the biggest aspects of what I do is when I'm working with a client and he or she is beginning to tell me about the massive amounts of performance anxiety they experience when they're in contention in a tournament, the massive amount of anger they experience when they feel that they are underperforming or stuck in a pattern of repetitive mistakes. As we get clear on the emotion, it's the anger, it's the pressure, it's the fear, it's the sadness, it's the shame, it's the grief, the anxiety, and on it goes. The next step is getting incredibly clear on where that emotion is felt and experienced physically in your body. So your one key takeaway here is to start reflecting. When you experience less than stellar play on the golf course, or where you are having a difficult time in your professional or personal life, first and foremost, we need to label that emotion. Is it anger? Is it anxiousness? Is it disappointment? Is it fear? Is it grief? Is it frustration, annoyance, impatience? And then we want to be incredibly clear on how does that present physically in your body. The reason that's so important is in my line of work and with my clients, I use it as a catalyst to go back to previous moments in my clients' lives they felt that way so that we can hop, skip, and jump to the origin, which ultimately helps us begin to identify when they learn to feel, think, behave, or believe a certain way. And then we can do the necessary work to unlearn all of those outdated programs. For you, you get to be able to become aware of this and be able to use this newfound awareness to proactively make a change. If you're on the third hole and there's a lot of water on your left with the back left pin placement, and you have a tendency to miss left, when you start to feel your chest tighten, okay, that's a sign. Some anxiety, some nerves are creeping in. Remember, when all of that energy is moving around, you're likely experiencing some form of tightness or tension, which is the antithesis to your swing. So the moment you notice it, which this in and of itself is a skill, it will take practice, repetition, continued awareness, and commitment before it becomes more habitual. But when you begin to have awareness of how you're feeling, you can break that loop, break that pattern, take a couple rapid reset breaths. Go walk a lap around the golf cart, reset, refocus, and go hit the shot you know you're capable of hitting. So the one point I want to come back to now is that you're an emotional being, which really allows us to begin to make this transition that you are an energetic being. And I want to take you down a trip down memory lane here, going back to what I surmise is likely high school, if not middle school chemistry class. You're an energetic being. And what I mean by that is you are composed of chemicals and nutrients, and these molecules are composed of atoms, which, literally everything on this planet is composed of atoms. Atoms are composed of protons, neutrons, electrons. And my chemistry teacher from 7th grade comes to mind, Miss Brandt. Shout out to her. So what's really interesting is for the longest time, there was this Newtonian model, this Newtonian framework of the structure of an atom. And this framework postulated that atoms were, of course, primarily composed of protons, neutrons, electrons, but really primarily composed of mass, of substance. But as advancements in technology continued to push further and further, and we could see better and better, if you will, there was a massive shift in perspective, which allowed us to ultimately understand an updated composition and structure of atoms. The truth is that atoms are composed of 0.001% matter, not the 100% previously postulated. What is the remaining 99.999% composed of? Energy. We, you, me, all we are is energy. That rhyming was pretty nice. And isn't that a song? Okay, I digress. Back on track. So what's really interesting here is we are literally composed of energy. And energy can be measured. Energy is measured at vibrational frequencies. And that's really noteworthy because we can measure energy, and it allows us to further understand how our different emotional states are merely different vibrations or frequencies of energy moving around within our body. And I like to use this analogy. Think about the last time that you got paired with a random single on the course, and you just immediately hit it off with that person. You connected, you gelled, you got along, you vibed. The word vibe at its core really is a shortening of the word vibration. So the word vibe we can define as someone's emotional state or kind of like their external atmosphere that is communicated and felt by you. You're feeling their energy. You're feeling their vibrational frequency. And this is incredibly important because there exists a spectrum of vibrational frequencies. And depending on the specific measurement, measured in hertz, Research has allowed us to begin to identify and attach specific emotional states to specific vibrational frequencies. Pretty freaking cool, right? So this energy potential, this vibrational energy, is a reflection of your cell's ability. So we're getting really granular here, to contract and expand. The higher the vibrational frequency, the greater the ability to expand. Think about what else expansion encompasses: abundance, growth, action. The lower the vibrational frequency, on the other hand, the more likely, stronger the propensity to contract, to play small, to go inward, to shrink, become a shell of yourself. And that's really, really important to note. And when we think of this spectrum I alluded to, and I'll just share some examples, low on this emotional frequency or vibrational energy spectrum are emotions such as shame, guilt, apathy, grief, and fear. Conversely, on the higher end of the spectrum are expansion, high energy emotions such as enlightenment, peace, joy, love, acceptance, courage. When you're operating at a higher frequency, you're in a state of abundance and growth. When you're operating at a lower frequency, you're contracting, you're operating from an emotional state of lack, fear, and closed-mindedness. And the depth and intensity of each emotion you experience then impacts the way you show up in everyday life. Now get this. The emotional or energetic vibration you experience can be thought of as ripples on a lake. Not necessarily disturbing, but you can feel the sensations are nonetheless present. Or the emotional vibrational state you experience can be like a torrent river in a state of panic and fear. And even in the most challenging of times in your life, which I hope you don't experience these on the golf course, this emotional state can feel like a tsunami with waves hitting you with full force, constantly pulling you down, struggling to keep your head above water. It feels heavy, hot, tense, tight, chaotic.
Hey, let's cut through the bullshit. You know what to do to improve your game. You don't have an information problem. You have a mindset problem. Specifically, a collection of outdated fears, limiting beliefs, and sabotaging behaviors designed to keep you stuck in a place of familiarity and comfortability. Fortunately for you, these fears, beliefs, and behaviors are all learned, which means they can be unlearned. As a high-performance hypnotherapist and mindset coach with 16 years of experience helping people just like you get unstuck and unlock their potential, I use hypnosis to help unlearn the fears, beliefs, and behaviors keeping you stuck so you can get out of your own way and make playing to your potential a habit. If you're serious about taking your game to the next level, mindset coaching will help accelerate the process and upgrade your results. Click the link in the show notes below to schedule a mindset coaching discovery call with me today.
I want to pause because I know we've taken a road less traveled down memory lane. We've brought up some science into the equation or conversation. All we are is energy. Energy in motion. That is the definition or the derivative of the word emotion. So this energy, remember, we are always changing. Change is the one constant. It's always necessary to be in charge, to master, to remain control of our energy. When we're able to do so, and we'll talk about this as we move forward, we take back control, power. We exercise our ability to operate at a higher frequency, to be in a place of expansion, open-mindedness, patience, stillness, presence. And when we can ultimately get into this state, life begins to slow down, at least in our minds, and we feel more in control. we're able to see the little nuances that influence our decision making so we can take the best course of action to perform to our potential. Very, very important here. Now, the one other piece of information I wanted to share on this is we've talked about emotion as energy in motion. At its core, emotion, or energy rather, is neither positive nor negative. It just is. It's inherently neutral. And the way we can think about emotion is as a pre-programmed default reaction produced by your subconscious mind to a given circumstance, person, or environment. What makes this emotion positive or negative is how we react to the external stimuli that provoked the emotion in the first place. And how you react is based on past experiences, memories, and bits of information your subconscious has collected and stored along the way to keep you safe. This reaction, again, a better way to say this, is just influenced by your interpretation of the present circumstance alongside thoughts, beliefs, and memories. In most instances, your subconscious is trying to protect you. Well, in all instances it is, but in most instances, we get this lens of negativity, survival, protection. And if you recall, as I've also shared numerous times on this podcast, research suggests that about 90% of your thoughts today are the same as yesterday, and 80% of them are negative. So oftentimes as we navigate life and an emotional pre-programmed reaction is triggered, there's a default bias towards something negative, a threat, a danger, and a very strong propensity to end up in that fight or flight response. So hopefully you're beginning to see how easy it can be to get sucked into, trapped, stuck in these protective, negative, draining states of thinking, feeling, behaving, believing, so that it feels as if time just flies by and we can't even really reflect or recall exactly what we did, let alone why we chose to do what we did. Things are happening on autopilot. These unconscious programs are being triggered, and the energy you have, because you've run these programs so many times, you are continuing to just facilitate these pathways with more efficiency, more effectiveness. But what's really interesting here is this creates an opportunity for further awareness. If you now understand that emotional energy manifests in your body as physical sensations, do you also understand that emotions first begin in your mind? Emotions, that visceral, physical, intellectual, spiritual, physical meaning and interpretation attached to a moment or a memory from the past is stored in your subconscious. It's stored in your mind. These emotions originate in your mind. And what is your mind if not a constant energy stream of words, thoughts, interpretations, commentaries, and conversations to yourself, memories of the past, and narratives and stories about your future? Your mind is energy. There's emotional energy stored in your words, your thoughts, your beliefs, and all of that influences your behaviors. Think about that for a second. If your mind is filled with negative emotion, that negative energy begins to bleed into your words, thoughts, beliefs, actions, shaping your results, creating your identity, which allows us to make the definitive statement that emotional suffering originates in the mind. There is a strong connection then too between the emotions present in your mind and what and how you feel in your body. And when these emotions remain unmanaged or actively repressed, all that's taking place is an energy block, a stuckness to that energy, which essentially you can think of as being pushed down to some nether region, nook or cranny within your body. And as this unaddressed, repressed energy continues to pile up and be repressed, it finds a particular spot in your body to hang out. And inevitably, it becomes a source of pain, a source of likely injury. And there is a whole body of work, well beyond the scope of this podcast conversation, that helps you understand how certain emotions, or rather, let me flip that, how certain areas of your body in which you're experiencing aches, ailments, and pain, and how that location is indicative of the likely emotion you are not addressing, avoiding, or repressing. So, for example, if you have a lot of pain in your lower back, L4, L5, L5, S1, depending on the side of the body, that might suggest there is a scarcity mindset around money. Pain on the right, or to the right or the left side, upper back, rhomboids, as you could be carrying the weight of the world and not asking for help. It could be anger. And I'm not going to go too much further down this path because I am not an expert in it, but I will tell you, Louise Hay, I think the book is like How to Heal Your Body or Heal Your Mind, Heal Your Body. Just Google Louise Hay, a short little 80 to 100 page book. Can't recommend it enough. But my point is, it's all connected. The physical pain you feel is a reflection of your emotional state. You work on your emotional state being your mind, you can fix a lot of the ailments in your body. Everything is energy. Your thoughts begin it, your emotions amplify it, your actions increase its momentum, your results and your reality become expressions of that emotional energy. It's a lot to take in. And where I want to go next is shining a further and brighter light on how you can begin to gather or garner more awareness and take back control. As I was putting together my notes for this episode, I was tempted to go down the path of there are so many things you can do to improve and optimize your energy. We can do all of the things. We could follow a great diet. We can optimize sleep. We can have a consistent exercise regimen. We do the meditation, the breath work, the journaling. We do the things. What I feel is most important, though, is if we use this umbrella term of emotional or energetic management, it's not doing all of the things. It's doing the select few, the right, most effective, optimal things with intention and being deliberate in execution while remaining present. So, key point number one here, and I recognize everybody listening, you and I, we're on different journeys of our emotional awareness or our emotional intelligence. Phase one of making progress here is awareness. And that's through asking yourself better questions, creating the action of having some form of reflection or check-in to review what emotions came up for you or what you've been feeling. This could be the morning or the weekly journal or reflection process, or one of my favorites, what I put in place with all of my clients, is an after-round reflection. So when you can look back and see that you bogeyed 10 and 11, well, what happened throughout that 2-hole stretch? Maybe the hole even before. What happened on 9, or what happened on the turn? What was your emotional state? What was the physical experience like? We have to find a way to start labeling and becoming familiar with what emotion we are feeling. I've got a client of mine who literally, an older gentleman, just felt like he couldn't come up with the words. He didn't know how he was feeling. And I can only imagine how limiting and restricted he felt, because early on in our work, he couldn't put words to anything. So one of the things I did was I sent him a list of 100 different emotions so he could start being able to connect with how I'm feeling to, oh, that sounds familiar. Oh, right? His emotional vocabulary was lacking. And yours might be too. So if the only emotions that come up are, I feel good, or it was fine, or it was okay, we need to expand your emotional vocabulary. So go Google list of common emotions, list of 50 emotions. Start upgrading your vocabulary to better be able to speak to what it is you're experiencing. From there, with more awareness, we want to bring further awareness to how you experience that anger, that stress, that anxiety, that shame, that frustration physically in your body. That awareness allows us to take proactive steps to manage and mitigate that emotion when we need it most, before a big sales presentation, before a new client pitch, before we putt for birdie on 18, before we tee off on 18 to win the match. We want to be able to manage that emotion. We want to be aware it's present in our body, what it is, and then be able to manage it. As we continue to increase, or as you continue to increase your awareness, really, I think the shortcut to emotional mastery is just slowing the fuck down. I often come back to the voice of the subconscious mind as silence. If emotions reside in your subconscious mind, that silence is a way of connecting with your best self, your highest self, your intuition, if you will. And just learning to have this communication, this internal dialogue, feeling throughout your body what is and what is not present. I like a meditation or a silence practice to allow myself to further connect here. But we need some form of practice that allows us to further understand our emotions and understand when and why we are most likely to experience said emotions. Again, it's just a deepening of awareness. It's a constant deepening of awareness. What are the emotions? What does it feel like? What or when do I experience them? And that allows us and empowers us to start pushing deeper to understand why. And with that deeper understanding, that's where the magic, the opportunity for growth comes. That's when we can begin to understand, oh, wow, this emotion, this default reaction, I've been doing that since I was 7 years old. My dad or my mom used to behave that way. That's not me. And we can begin to create space, detach, never saying I'm angry, I'm ashamed. You could say, I feel that way, feeling representing it's a temporary state. And that's really, really important because we can create space, not wear it, not identify as being stuck with that emotion. And that's really, really powerful as it allows you to maintain a semblance of control. Because on that note, we have to come back to one of the points I believe I shared earlier, is there's an impermanence of energy. It's dynamic. It's always shifting from one form or state to another. And if we accept that to be true, we can accept that emotions operate in the same manner. Therefore, you can, and you often do, experience a change from one emotional state to the next, and sometimes even in the blink of an eye. For example, one moment you may be feeling angry. You just shanked your tee shot, then you hit a beautiful, indescribably phenomenal shot the next one, and suddenly you went from angry and disappointed to fucking ecstatic, high, if you will. Energy is constantly in flux. It's dynamic and it's chronically impermanent. Therefore, so are emotions. And just as energy continuously dissolves and transforms, so do emotions. Emotions are impermanent, and the mistake you are making is you tend to behave as if emotions are permanent, which leads to making potentially permanent changes from an impermanent state. And one of the funny examples I often come back to that's just, I think, rooted in my past work as a high-performance dietitian was when somebody is overweight, unhappy, and unhealthy, they get stuck in a fleeting moment of desperation and hopelessness. These are just fleeting emotional states, but they feel so stuck and trapped in there, it begins to consume them that they make decisions from a place of desperation, which leads to making silly decisions like committing to a 30-day celery juice cleanse or chugging apple cider vinegar and eating nothing but carrots for 30 days. And you and I both know where they end up after 3 days, or if they make it the full 30 days, back in that plate of desperation with added frustration and hopelessness, probably some regret and disappointment, and the cycle repeats itself. But that's why it's so important to not only understand, and hopefully this conversation is giving you the depth of understanding that emotions are temporary, but also to help you understand that operating in an overly emotional state doesn't typically serve you well. Even if you're overly confident, that can have repercussions. When we are reacting, or when you are reacting from an overly emotional state, you tend to tap into a method of thinking that is irrational, rash, and not in line, not congruent with your goals or the best version of yourself. And because of the strong energy potential each emotion carries, it has the ability to impact your identity. And you begin to assume the role of someone who comes up short, who can't perform under pressure, who is always angry. And that just shows up. If that's the identity you begin to wear as a result of remaining stuck in these emotions and making long-term decisions in short-term temporary states, that negative emotion begins to permeate into your behaviors, your beliefs, your thoughts. It's your identity. And now you are not a fun person to be around, to say the least. And I sure as hell don't want to play a round of golf with you if you're stuck in all of that. Well, I probably would, because I'd love to befriend you, help you out, and still play a round of golf. But my point is this. Emotion is the core driver for change. Emotion is nothing more than energy in motion. When you can learn to not only gain greater awareness of emotion, like we've talked at length about, but when you can learn to befriend emotion, really feel into how you're feeling now, how you want to feel into how you're feeling during some of the negative, uncomfortable, shitty moments, and allow yourself to feel it and express it, you begin to reclaim control. You begin to take steps towards mastering your energy. When you master your energy, you master your life. Everything slows down. You remain in the driver's seat, almost as if you have this central dashboard where you can turn up and down the dials of your emotions and energetic states to create the potent cocktail and combination of what you need to perform at your best when you need it most. On the course, on the job, with your kids, with your spouse. Take back control, master your energy, and master your life. I thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I have an imagination. It probably hit a little different. And if it did, if it felt a little uncomfortable, hell, if it felt a little woo-woo, I encourage you to explore that with some curiosity. The power of emotion, the power of energy. What are you doing to protect and expand your energy? What are you doing to expel and express the emotions you feel? What are you doing to allow yourself to really feel even the most uncomfortable emotions, knowing to be true, they're temporary. They will be expressed back into the universe, the ether, if you will. So perhaps not too much to chew on as much as there's a lot to think about, dwell on, reflect on. But I trust you found value in this episode. I thank you so much for listening. If you haven't done so, hey, do me a favor. 30 seconds is all it takes to leave a genuine rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you haven't done so, I would greatly appreciate it. I wish you a wonderful rest of the week. Hit them straight this weekend, and I'll catch you in the next episode.